My sister slept with my fiancé, and instead of supporting me, my family shamed me and said, "Stop crying, let them enjoy their happiness." Their humiliation cut deeper than the betrayal, but the decision I finally made for myself, not for their comfort, left them reeling in stunned disbelief that day. "Stop crying, Sophia. You're making everyone uncomfortable. Let them enjoy their happiness." My mother said those words to me at Sunday dinner while my sister sat there pregnant with my ex-fiance's baby. Lisa and Mason were holding hands across the table. My parents were pouring wine like this was a celebration. And I was supposed to smile and be happy for them. I'd caught them together on my couch 3 weeks earlier. 3 months they'd been sleeping together behind my back. 3 months while I planned a wedding, picked out flowers, wrote vows about trust and forever. And now my mother was telling me to stop crying because my tears were ruining their moment. That's when I realized something. My family didn't care that I'd been betrayed. They cared that I wasn't getting over it fast enough. They wanted me to forgive, forget, and celebrate the people who'd destroyed my life. So I made a decision that day. Not for their comfort. For mine. And the look on their faces when I finally spoke up? I'll never forget it. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up at that dinner table listening to my mother defend the two people who'd shattered my world, you need to know who I was before everything fell apart. You need to understand the life I'd built so carefully, and how completely I'd missed the signs that it was all crumbling around me. 3 weeks before that dinner, I was living what I thought was the perfect life. I'm Sophia Bellamy, or at least I was back then. I'm 26 years old and I work as a senior marketing coordinator at a mid-sized firm in Milwaukee. The kind of job where people know you're reliable. Where your project timelines never slip and your presentations always land. I was the person my boss Patricia called on when a campaign needed to be flawless, when a client needed careful handling, when something absolutely could not fail. I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment in Bayview that I'd decorated myself. Every piece of furniture chosen deliberately. Every throw pillow matching a specific color scheme. Every picture frame placed with intention. The living room had this couch I'd saved 3 months of paychecks to buy, soft gray fabric, deep cushions, the kind of piece that made the whole room feel put together. I was proud of that couch. Proud of the home I'd created. 8 months before everything imploded, Mason Hayes proposed to me. We'd driven up to Door County for the weekend, one of those October trips where the leaves are turning and the air has that perfect autumn crispness. He took me to this rocky overlook at sunset, the water turning gold behind him, and got down on one knee. The ring was a simple solitaire, the exact one I'd stopped to admire 3 months earlier when we'd been walking past a jewelry store downtown. "I pay attention," he'd said when I asked how he knew. "I always pay attention to what matters to you." I thought that meant something. I thought it meant he loved me the way I loved him. We'd been together 3 years by then. We met at our friend Julia's birthday party, one of those casual backyard things where someone's grilling burgers and everyone's drinking cheap beer. Mason wasn't like the other guys there. He had this intensity about him, this focus. He talked about 5-year plans and building something meaningful with his architecture career. He was ambitious, driven, the kind of person who made you want to be better just by being around him. I fell hard and fast. Our wedding was planned for June 14th. 4 months away from that terrible Sunday dinner. The venue was booked, a historic mansion with gardens overlooking Lake Michigan. The invitations were already ordered. Elegant script reading, "Sophia Bellamy and Mason Hayes request the pleasure of your company." My dress hung in my closet, altered and ready, a simple A-line with lace sleeves that had made me cry when I first tried it on. I had a binder. A thick, tabbed, color-coded binder tracking every single detail. Centerpieces, pale pink roses and white hydrangeas. Reception playlist, carefully curated to get people dancing without being cheesy. Seating chart, arranged to keep my mother's difficult sister away from my father's opinionated brother. Every detail mapped out, every potential problem anticipated and solved. That was who I was. The planner. The person who had everything under control. I should have known that kind of control was just an illusion. I grew up in the Bellamy household where control was everything. My mother Margaret runs our family like a military operation. Sunday dinners start at 6 sharp. Holiday decorations go up the day after Thanksgiving and come down January 2nd. Every event is orchestrated for maximum appearance of harmony. Everything looks perfect from the outside even when it's rotting underneath. My father Daniel works in insurance and has perfected the art of avoiding anything uncomfortable. When tension rises, he disappears into his garage workshop to sand wood or organize tools or do whatever lets him pretend conflict doesn't exist. He's been doing it my entire life. I'm the middle child, sandwiched between Nathan, my older brother, and Lisa, my younger sister. Nathan's 29, a financial analyst with a nice apartment downtown and a steady girlfriend he'll probably propose to eventually. He's the golden son, successful, appropriate, careful never to rock the boat. When family drama erupts, Nathan sends supportive text messages but never actually takes sides. He's perfected neutrality the way some people perfect a golf swing. Then there's Lisa. Lisa is 24, effortlessly beautiful with long dark hair that falls in perfect waves no matter what she does to it. She has this smile that makes strangers stop mid-sentence just to look at her. She's spontaneous, magnetic, the kind of person who talks about living authentically and following her energy. She works part-time at a boutique downtown but has never held a job longer than a year. Things always get boring or restrictive or not aligned with her vibe. My parents think it's charming. They call her a free spirit. I learned early what my role in this family was supposed to be. I was the responsible one. The daughter who color-coded her school binders and never missed curfew. The one who got good grades without being asked, who helped with dishes without being told, who never caused drama or made scenes or embarrassed anyone. I built my entire identity around being dependable because I thought dependability meant love. I thought if I was good enough, organized enough, perfect enough, my parents would value me the way they valued Lisa. I thought following every rule would earn me the same unconditional support my sister got for breaking them. I was wrong. But I didn't know that yet. Not 3 weeks before that dinner. Back then I still believed in the fairy tale I'd constructed. The successful career. The supportive family. The fiancé who'd chosen me over everyone else. The wedding that would prove I'd done everything right. There were signs, of course. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. 3 months before I caught them, Mason started working late more often. He'd text around 7 saying he'd grabbed dinner at the office, apologizing, promising he'd be home by 9. Then 9 became 10. Then he'd come home and go straight to the shower, saying he felt gross from sitting in meetings all day. His phone changed too. It used to sit casually on the coffee table, unlocked, available. Then suddenly it was always in his pocket. When he did set it down, it was face down. Password protected when it never had been before. When I asked about it, he had explanations. Work was stressful. He was trying to close a big project before the wedding. He didn't want to bring his stress home to me. Things will calm down after June, he promised, pulling me close. I'm just trying to make sure we're financially stable. I want to give you the life you deserve. I believed him because believing him was easier than questioning the foundation of everything I'd built. Lisa started acting strange too. At Sunday dinners, she'd ask detailed questions about the wedding. Which florist had we chosen? What were Mason's favorite colors? Had we decided on a honeymoon destination? At the time, I thought she was being supportive, taking sisterly interest in my big day. I didn't notice the way Mason's jaw would tighten when she asked. I didn't notice the glances they'd exchange across the table. Twice I walked into rooms where they were talking quietly, and the conversation would stop the instant they saw me. Once I came home early from work and found Lisa sitting on my couch, that gray couch I'd saved for. She said she'd stopped by to borrow a cookbook, but when she left 10 minutes later, her hands were empty. Mason was in the shower when I came in. I remember standing in the living room looking at the couch cushions that seemed slightly disturbed, thinking something felt off. But I talked myself out of it. Lisa was my sister. Mason was my fiancé. They were allowed to be friendly. I was just stressed about work and wedding planning. I was imagining problems that didn't exist. Except the problems did exist. I just didn't want to see them. The truth crashed down on a Tuesday in late February. I left work early, 4:30 instead of my usual 6, because I'd finished a major presentation that morning. The client loved it. My boss had actually said brilliant in front of the whole team. I felt accomplished, successful, ready to celebrate. I stopped at Thai Orchid and picked up Mason's favorites. Pad Thai, spring rolls, mango sticky rice. The works. The February wind cut through my coat as I carried the warm bag to my car, already imagining his face when I walked in. Maybe we'd actually have an evening together. Maybe we'd talk, really talk, without him checking his phone every 30 seconds. His car was in the parking lot when I got home. I felt this stupid little thrill. He was actually home for once. Not working late. Not at the office. Home. The apartment door was unlocked. I pushed it open, already smiling, calling out, "I brought dinner." Then I stopped. The living room was dim. Just gray February light through half-closed blinds. And there, on the couch I'd saved 3 months to buy, were Mason and Lisa. Tangled together. Barely clothed. His hands in her hair. Her leg wrapped around his waist. The takeout bag slipped from my fingers. I heard the containers hit the floor, heard the dull thud of impact, but the sound felt distant and strange, like it was happening to someone else. Pad thai spread across the hardwood in a greasy puddle. They froze. Mason's face went white. Lisa's eyes went huge. And in that moment, watching them scramble apart, I saw my entire carefully constructed life shatter into pieces I'd never be able to put back together. How long? My voice came out colder than I knew it could. Steadier than it had any right to be when everything inside me was screaming. Lisa scrambled off the couch, grabbing Mason's shirt to cover herself. That pleading tone immediately entered her voice. The one I'd heard our entire lives, the one that always made our parents fold like paper. "Sophia, wait please." But I couldn't move. Couldn't process what my eyes were showing me, even though the evidence was right there, undeniable, destroying everything I thought I knew. Mason sat frozen on the edge of the couch, his face displaying guilt but also something else. Relief maybe. Like part of him was glad the secret was finally out, glad he didn't have to pretend anymore. How long? I repeated each word harder than the last. Mason's mouth opened. "It just happened, we didn't mean." "How long?" The shout surprised all three of us. I'm not a yeller. I've never been a yeller. But something in me had cracked open and this raw, furious thing was clawing its way out. Lisa's tears started instantly. Those perfectly timed tears she'd weaponized since childhood. 3 months, she whispered, her voice breaking on the words. "Sophia, I'm so sorry. We tried to stop, but we fell in love." 3 months. The words landed like physical blows, each one knocking something loose inside me. 3 months. While I'd been comparing ivory and cream table linens at the rental company. While I'd been writing vows about trust and partnership and building a life together. While I'd been lying awake at night worrying that I was imagining problems, talking myself into believing everything was fine. Every family dinner where Lisa had smiled sweetly and asked about wedding plans, which vendors we'd chosen, what Mason's favorite flowers were, whether we'd picked a honeymoon destination. Every late night Mason claimed to be working. Every time I'd walked into a room and their conversation had stopped abruptly. Every moment I'd second-guessed my own instincts and chosen to trust them instead. All of it had been real. All of it had been betrayal happening right in front of me while I convinced myself I was being paranoid. "We tried to resist it," Lisa continued, her mascara running down her cheeks in perfect tragic streaks. "But feelings aren't something you can just turn off, Sophia. We didn't want to hurt you. We never wanted to hurt you." Something inside me turned from pain into something else. Something harder, sharper, more dangerous than grief. "Get out." Mason stood up, reaching for his jeans. "Sophia, can we just talk about this? Please? Let me explain." "Get out." My voice was deadly calm now, that cold steadiness back. "There's nothing to explain. I saw everything I needed to see. But if you'd just listen." Mason took a step toward me, his hands raised like I was some unpredictable animal that might bolt. "Get out." The scream tore out of me. "Get out of my apartment. Now." They moved then, scrambling to gather their scattered clothing. Lisa was still crying, those manipulative tears flowing freely as she pulled on her jeans with shaking hands. Mason grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. My couch, the one I'd saved for, the one that was now ruined forever. I stood by the door with my arms wrapped around myself, physically holding my body together because it felt like I might fly apart otherwise. Every muscle was rigid. Every breath hurt. Mason paused at the door, looking back at me. His mouth open like he wanted to say something profound, something that might somehow make this fixable. The expression on my face must have stopped him because he closed his mouth and walked out. Lisa followed, still crying, still looking back at me with those big wounded eyes like she was the victim here. The door clicked shut. The apartment was suddenly terribly quiet. I stood there, frozen, staring at the couch where my entire future had just imploded. The Thai food containers were still on the floor where I'd dropped them. Pad Thai was seeping into the area rug I'd bought at a summer flea market, the one I'd been so proud of finding. The sauce was making a dark stain that I knew would never come out. Another thing ruined. I should cry. I knew I should cry. That's what people do when their world falls apart, right? They cry. They scream. They break things. But I felt nothing except a strange, hollow detachment. Like I was watching this happen to someone else. Like Sophia Bellamy, the girl who'd carefully planned her entire life, had ceased to exist the moment she opened that door. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes. Hours. Time felt broken, meaningless. Eventually my legs moved. I walked to the bedroom, lay down on top of the covers still fully clothed and stared at the ceiling. The winter evening light faded into darkness. I didn't turn on any lights. I just lay there watching shadows move across the ceiling, my mind replaying the scene over and over. 3 months. They'd been doing this for 3 months. Morning light was filtering through the curtains when I finally moved again. I picked up my phone with shaking hands. There were texts from Mason, 7 of them, each more desperate than the last. Please let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you, Sophia. Can we please talk? I deleted them without reading past the previews. There was one text from Lisa. I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. You're my sister. I deleted that too. Then I called my mother. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone twice before she answered. But I was certain, absolutely certain, that this was the moment Margaret would finally show up for me. This betrayal was too obvious, too cruel. Even my mother's favoritism toward Lisa couldn't excuse this. Sophia? It's early. Is everything okay? Mom, I need to tell you something. My voice cracked. Yesterday I came home and found Mason and Lisa together. On my couch. They were sleeping together. There was a pause. A long pause. And when my mother spoke again, her voice carried surprise but not the outrage I desperately needed. Are you sure you didn't misunderstand what you saw? The question hit me like a slap. Misunderstand? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, they were half naked on my couch. There's nothing to misunderstand. Another pause. Well, these things happen sometimes, Sophia. People can't always control who they fall for. My stomach dropped. These things happen. Mom, she's my sister. He's my fiancé. Was your fiancé, she corrected, and I could hear her already rewriting the narrative in her mind. You're not married yet. Technically, he was free to make other choices. I almost hung up right then. Almost. But some desperate part of me still hoped she'd come to her senses. Are you actually defending them right now? I'm not defending anyone. I'm just saying that maybe there's more to this than you're seeing. Lisa called me last night. She was very upset. She said they tried to resist it, but love is complicated, Sophia. Love. She was calling this love. This isn't love, I said, my voice rising. This is betrayal. He's my sister. He slept with my fiancé for 3 months while I planned our wedding. How is that love? Don't be dramatic. You're 26 years old, not a teenager. You'll meet someone else. And Lisa and Mason deserve a chance to be happy too. Those words, deserve a chance to be happy, echoed in my head like a death sentence. My mother wasn't going to support me. She was already pivoting to protect Lisa. Her golden child. The daughter who could do no wrong even when she'd done the worst thing imaginable. I have to go, I said, my voice hollow. Sophia, don't be like this. We can talk about it rationally. I hung up. For a long moment I just sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. Then I called my father. Surely Dad would be different. Surely he'd see how wrong this was. Your mother told me, he said before I could even explain. He sighed, and it sounded like exhaustion with me rather than anger at the situation. Look, Sophia, I know you're hurt, but maybe this is for the best. If Mason had feelings for Lisa, better you found out now than after the wedding. Better I found out now. Like the timing was the problem. Like discovering betrayal by walking in on them was somehow a blessing in disguise. Better I found out by walking in on them? My voice was rising again. Better I got humiliated this way? You're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. These things happen in families. You need to be mature about this and move on. Don't create more drama than necessary. Drama. He called my devastation drama. I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the phone. It clattered onto the hardwood floor, the screen cracking in the corner. I didn't pick it up. Over the next 2 weeks I waited. I kept thinking someone would call. Someone would show up at my door. Someone would say, "This is wrong and I'm here for you." Nathan sent a text 3 days later. "Sorry about the situation. That sucks." That was it. No follow-up. No phone call. No, "Do you want to talk?" Or, "Are you okay?" Just acknowledgement that the situation sucked, as if my fiancé sleeping with my sister was equivalent to getting a flat tire. My parents didn't call back. Lisa didn't apologize. Mason kept texting for a few days, then stopped when I never responded. The silence from my family was deafening. A void where support should have been. Where love should have been. Instead, there was just emptiness and the growing, crushing realization that I was completely, devastatingly alone. I'd lost my fiancé. I'd lost my sister. And I'd lost my family, not because they were gone, but because they'd chosen to stand with the people who'd destroyed me rather than with me. That realization hurt worse than finding Mason and Lisa together. At least their betrayal was sudden. This one had been there all along. I just hadn't wanted to see it. 2 weeks passed in a blur of numbness and disbelief. I went to work. I sat through meetings. I smiled when people asked how wedding planning was going and said something vague about postponing. I came home to an apartment that felt haunted by what I'd seen. I slept on the couch because I couldn't bring myself to lie in the bed I'd shared with Mason. I didn't hear from Lisa. I didn't hear from my parents after those initial phone calls. Nathan sent one more text asking if I was doing okay, but didn't follow up when I didn't respond. The silence should have been a warning. On Wednesday evening my phone rang. My mother's name appeared on the screen, and for one stupid moment, I thought maybe she was calling to apologize. Maybe she'd had time to think about how wrong she'd been. "We're having a family dinner on Sunday," she announced before I could even say hello. Her tone was the one she uses when she's made a decision and expects compliance. "Everyone needs to be there. It's time to clear the air and move forward." Move forward. I repeated, my voice flat. "It's been 2 weeks, Mom." "Exactly. 2 weeks is long enough to wallow." Her voice sharpened. "Lisa and Mason are coming. They want to apologize in person, and the least you can do is hear them out and let this family heal. Let this family heal. Not let me heal. Let the family heal from the inconvenience of my pain. I don't think." "Sophia, stop being selfish. This isn't just about you. This tension is affecting everyone. Your father and I raised you better than this. Family comes first, and that means forgiveness." Every instinct I had screamed at me to refuse. To protect myself from whatever trap she was clearly setting. But there was still this pathetic, desperate part of me that hoped. Maybe if I showed up, someone would finally take my side. Maybe my father would see reason. Maybe Nathan would speak up for once in his life. Maybe this dinner would be the moment my family proved they actually cared about me. "What time?" I heard myself ask. 6 o'clock. "Don't be late." She hung up before I could change my mind. I spent the next 3 days feeling like I was walking toward an execution. I barely slept. Food tasted like cardboard. At work, I stared at my computer screen without seeing it, my mind replaying every possible scenario of how Sunday could go. None of my imagined scenarios prepared me for what actually happened. Sunday arrived gray and cold, the kind of February day where the sky is the same color as the slush on the streets. I drove to my parents' house in Shorewood with my stomach in knots, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Their house looked exactly the same as always. The wreath my mother insisted on keeping up through February still hung on the front door. My father's car was parked in its usual spot in the driveway. Everything looked normal. Safe. Familiar. It was all a lie. I pushed open the front door. It was never locked when they were expecting me, and the scene that greeted me felt like walking into a nightmare. Lisa and Mason were sitting together at the dining table. Together. His arm was draped casually over the back of her chair like they were already a couple, like they had every right to be here in my parents' house, at the table where I'd eaten Sunday dinners my entire life. My mother was setting out her good china. The set with the delicate floral pattern that she only uses for holidays and important occasions. She'd put out the cloth napkins. There were fresh flowers in a vase at the center of the table. My father was opening a bottle of wine, smiling like this was a normal family gathering. Nathan stood by the window, his hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. As always, they all turned to look at me when I walked in. And I saw it immediately. The unified front they'd formed. They'd already decided I was the problem. The difficult one. The person causing unnecessary drama. Sophia. My mother's voice was aggressively cheerful, that forced brightness she uses when she's determined to smooth over something unpleasant. Come sit down. We're all here to talk this through like adults. I stood frozen in the doorway, my purse clutched against my chest like a shield. What is this? My voice came out quieter than I intended. My mother's cheerfulness evaporated, replaced by that firm tone she uses when she expects to be obeyed. This is a family meeting. We need to address this situation because your anger is tearing us apart. My anger. Not Lisa's betrayal. Not Mason's cheating. My anger was tearing the family apart. Are you serious right now? I looked around the table at all of them. You invited them here? They're family, my father said, setting down the wine bottle. Mason's been part of this family for 3 years. And Lisa's your sister. We're not going to solve anything by refusing to talk. I didn't refuse to talk. You all refused to listen. Sophia, please. Lisa stood up, and I saw that her eyes were already red and swollen like she'd been crying before I arrived. Her voice took on that pleading quality I'd heard our entire lives. The one that always made our parents forgive her anything. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. Mason and we tried to fight it, but we couldn't help falling in love. Falling in love. Like it was something that happened to them. Like they were victims of circumstance instead of people who'd made deliberate choices to betray me over and over for 3 months. Mason stood up too, his expression arranged into something that was probably supposed to look remorseful. We know we handled this wrong. But what Lisa and I have is real, and we're hoping you can find it in your heart to understand. I stared at them both, searching their faces for any sign of genuine remorse. Any indication they understood the magnitude of what they'd destroyed. There was nothing. Just performance. Just words they'd rehearsed, designed to make everyone else in the room feel better. My father cleared his throat. Your mother and I have discussed this extensively. What happened between Lisa and Mason is unfortunate, but it's done. You can't change it. The mature thing to do is accept it and move forward. They're in love and they deserve your support. Support. The word came out as a harsh laugh. You want me to support the man who cheated on me with my own sister? He didn't cheat, my mother corrected sharply. You weren't married yet. Technically, he was free to make other choices. Technically. She was using technicalities to defend them. And Lisa didn't steal him, my mother continued. Feelings just developed naturally. These things happen, Sophia. You're being incredibly selfish right now. Lisa's your sister. Mason was a good man. If they found happiness together, the least you can do is be happy for them. Be happy for them. My mother actually said those words to me. My mother took a breath and I saw something shift in her expression. A kind of triumph. She was about to play what she thought was her winning card. Lisa is pregnant. The room tilted. She's 8 weeks along. My mother's voice took on that triumphant edge, like she'd just announced something wonderful. Which means we all need to put this behind us immediately. We're going to be grandparents and I won't have you ruining this blessing with your bitterness. 8 weeks pregnant. The math clicked into place with sickening clarity. 8 weeks ago I was still engaged to Mason. We were still planning our wedding. I was still choosing centerpieces and writing vows while Lisa was getting pregnant with his baby. And my mother was calling it a blessing. Say something, Lisa pleaded, her hand moving to her still flat stomach in a gesture that looked rehearsed. Say you'll be there for me. I need my sister. Nathan finally spoke up, his voice carrying that same be reasonable tone as our father. Sophia, come on. This is heavy, I know, but Lisa's right. She's going to need family support. We all need to move past this. I looked around the table at these people I'd spent 26 years trying to please. Trying to make proud. Trying to prove I was worthy of their love. My mother who would sacrifice anyone to protect her golden child. My father who would rather enable dysfunction than face uncomfortable truth. My brother who cared more about surface-level peace than actual justice. My sister who'd taken what she wanted without a second thought about who she'd destroy. And Mason who'd betrayed me and then showed up expecting forgiveness served on good china. I saw them all clearly for the first time. Stop crying. My mother's words cut through my thoughts. I hadn't even realized tears were streaming down my face. You're making everyone uncomfortable. She said it like I was being rude. Like my tears were a social faux pas. Let them enjoy their happiness. They've been through enough stress hiding this from you. Stop crying. Let them enjoy their happiness. They've been through enough stress. Those words crystallized everything into a single blinding moment of clarity. My pain was an inconvenience to them. My devastation was selfishness. My tears were ruining the comfortable narrative they'd constructed where Lisa and Mason were star-crossed lovers instead of people who'd betrayed me deliberately and repeatedly. Something inside me that had been bending and bending finally snapped. No. The word came out quiet but steady. My mother blinked. Excuse me. No. I said it louder this time. No. I'm not going to stop crying. I'm not going to make everyone comfortable. I'm not going to support them or be happy for them or pretend any of this is okay. The room went completely silent. Sophia, my father started, his voice carrying a warning. But I wasn't the Sophia they knew anymore. That version of me, the one who followed rules and met expectations and never caused drama, had died on my living room floor 2 weeks ago. This was someone new. Someone who'd finally had enough. Sophia, my father's voice carried a warning, that tone he uses when he thinks someone is about to do something they'll regret. I cut him off. I came here hoping, stupidly, desperately hoping, that someone in this family would actually care about how I feel. The words tumbled out, years of suppressed pain behind every syllable. That someone would look at what Lisa and Mason did and say it was wrong. That someone would choose me just once, over the golden child who's never been held accountable for anything in her entire life. That's not fair, Lisa protested, her voice breaking. I said I was sorry. You're not sorry. The force of my response made her flinch. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry it's inconvenient. But you're not sorry you did it, because if you were, you wouldn't be sitting here pregnant with his baby, holding his hand, demanding I celebrate with you. My mother stood up, her face flushing red. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Your selfishness. Your inability to think about anyone but yourself. Lisa is starting a family. That's a beautiful thing. But all you can do is make it about your hurt feelings. Hurt feelings. She called having my life destroyed by the two people I trusted most hurt feelings. Something inside me that had been barely holding together finally shattered completely. I looked down at my left hand. The engagement ring was still there. I'd been too heartbroken to take it off, some pathetic part of me still clinging to what it represented. What I'd thought it represented. I pulled it off. The metal felt cold against my fingers as I held it up, watching the light catch the stone. Then I placed it carefully on the table in front of Mason. You can give this to Lisa, I said, my voice steady now. Come. Since she wanted my life so badly. Mason's face went pale. Sophia, please don't do this. Don't do what? Give you back a ring you don't deserve? A promise you already broke. I turned to my mother. She was still standing, her hands gripping the back of her chair, her expression a mixture of anger and something that might have been panic. I'm done, I said simply. With all of you. My mother scoffed, a harsh sound. Don't be ridiculous. You're upset, but you'll calm down and realize we're right. You always do. No. I shook my head slowly. I won't. Because you're not right. You're convenient. You're taking Lisa's side because you always have. Because it's easier to sacrifice one daughter than hold your favorite accountable for anything. And I'm done being the sacrifice. I looked at each of them in turn, memorizing their faces. Some part of me understood this was the last time I'd see them as family. Lisa, I hope Mason treats you better than he treated me, but I doubt it. Cheaters don't suddenly become faithful just because the woman changes. Lisa's tears were flowing freely now, but I felt nothing looking at them. No sympathy. No connection. Nothing. Mom, Dad, I hope Lisa's baby fills the hole I'm leaving, because that's the only grandchild you'll ever get from me. My father took a step toward me. Sophia, you're being dramatic. Just sit down and let's talk about this rationally. I've been rational for 26 years. I've been responsible and dependable and perfect. And it got me nothing except a front row seat to my own humiliation while you all asked me to applaud. I turned to Nathan, still standing by the window, still silent. Nathan, enjoy your neutrality. I hope it keeps you warm at night when you realize you stood by and watched them destroy me and said nothing. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Coward. Finally, I looked at Mason. He was staring at the engagement ring on the table like it might explode. Mason, you deserve exactly what you're getting. And when she finds out you're cheating on her too, because you will, maybe she'll finally understand what she put me through. But I won't be around to see it. I picked up my purse from where I'd set it by the door. My hands were surprisingly steady. My mother's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. Sophia Bellamy, you walk out that door and you're walking out of this family. She used my full name like I was a child being disciplined. Like her disapproval still had power over me. I stopped at the door and turned back to face her. That's exactly what I'm doing, I said calmly. Except for one thing. I'm not a Bellamy anymore. I'm done carrying a name that connects me to people who cared so little about me that they asked me to celebrate my own betrayal. My mother's face went white. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my entire life. I walked out. Behind me, I heard my mother's outrage, Lisa's sobbing, my father calling for me to come back and be reasonable. I got in my car, started the engine and drove away without looking back. My hands shook on the steering wheel, but my decision was absolute. I was done. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, still on the couch because I couldn't face the bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying the scene over and over. The look on my mother's face when I said I wasn't a Bellamy anymore. Lisa's shock. Mason's pale silence. Nathan's cowardice. When morning light finally filtered through the curtains, I got up and opened my laptop. How to legally change your name in Wisconsin. The process was straightforward. File a petition with the circuit court. Publish notice in a local newspaper for 3 weeks. Appear before a judge for a hearing. Pay the fees. I needed a new name. Not just any name. A name that meant something. A name that connected me to strength instead of shame. Eleanor Crawford. My grandmother's name came to me like a gift. She died when I was 7, but I remembered her clearly. A woman who spoke her mind. Who left an unhappy marriage in the 1960s when divorce was scandalous. Who built a small catering business on her own terms and supported herself until the day she died. My mother used to say Eleanor was difficult. That she made everything harder than it needed to be. I understood now what that really meant. Eleanor refused to shrink. She refused to accommodate people who didn't value her. She chose herself when everyone else demanded she sacrifice. I wanted to be like her. I filled out the paperwork that morning. Filed the petition on Monday. Published the required notice. And 2 weeks later, on a Thursday morning in late March, I stood in the Milwaukee County Courthouse wearing my best professional outfit. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Why do you want to change your name, Miss Bellamy? She asked. I could have lied. Made up something generic and safe. But I was done lying to make other people comfortable. Because the name I was born with connects me to people who don't value me, I said simply. And I'm choosing to connect myself to someone who embodied the strength I'm trying to build. My grandmother, Eleanor Crawford. The judge studied me for a moment. Then she smiled just slightly, but it was there. Petition granted. She signed the order, and just like that, I became Sophia Crawford. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. Like I'd shed a skin that had never quite fit. Like I could finally breathe. That afternoon, I started the process of updating everything. Driver's license. Credit cards. Bank accounts. Work documents. Each form I filled out felt like another step away from the Bellamys and toward whoever Sophia Crawford would become. I didn't know her yet. But I was going to find out. 2 days later, I walked into my boss Karen's office and closed the door behind me. Karen looked up from her computer, concern immediately crossing her face. Everything okay? I took a breath. Remember that Boston transfer you mentioned 6 months ago? Karen leaned back in her chair, her expression shifting to something more neutral. Professional. The senior marketing manager position for the East Coast division? Is it still available? She studied me for a long moment. The position had been offered to me last September. A significant promotion that would have meant relocating to Boston, leading a larger team, handling accounts I'd only dreamed about. I'd turned it down without hesitation because Mason's architecture firm was in Milwaukee. Because my family was here. Because I'd built my entire life around accommodating everyone else's needs and dreams. Karen had been disappointed. I remembered the look on her face when I'd declined, the way she'd said, "If you change your mind, let me know," with an edge of resignation in her voice. "The position is still open," Karen said slowly. "We haven't found the right person yet." She paused. Can I ask what changed? I could have given her some professional answer. Something about career growth or new opportunities. But Karen had always been straight with me and I owed her the same honesty. I realized I was staying in Milwaukee for people who don't value me. And I'm choosing myself this time. Karen's professional mask slipped and a genuine smile crossed her face. Not the polite kind you give in meetings. A real smile. When can you start? We spent the next hour working out details. I'd have 3 weeks to relocate. The company would cover moving expenses up to $5,000. My salary would increase by 30%. I'd be managing a team of 8 instead of 3. I'd be handling accounts in Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. It was everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd been too afraid to reach for because it might inconvenience someone else. When I left Karen's office, I felt simultaneously terrified and exhilarated. I was burning down my entire life. Leaving my apartment. Leaving the city I'd lived in since college. Leaving behind every familiar thing. It should have felt reckless. Impulsive. Like a mistake. Instead, it felt like the first truly sane decision I'd made in years. That evening, I sat on my couch. The couch that was ruined now, stained with more than just spilled Thai food, and let myself feel it all. The fear. The grief. The rage. The liberation. In 3 weeks I'd be gone. I'd be Sophia Crawford, living in a city where no one knew the Bellamys. Where no one knew the girl who'd been too afraid to choose herself. I was finally free. And I was never looking back. 3 weeks. That's all I had to dismantle the life I'd spent years building. I started with the couch. I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. Every time I walked into the living room, I saw them tangled together, Mason's hands and Lisa's hair. The stain from the spilled Thai food had dried into a dark splotch that no amount of scrubbing could remove, but that wasn't why it had to go. The couch itself had become evidence of a crime scene I couldn't stop replaying. I listed it on Facebook Marketplace for $200. A college student showed up the next day with 3 friends and a borrowed truck. I watched from the window as they carried it down the stairs, bumping it against the walls, laughing about something I couldn't hear. It felt like watching them haul away a body. The kitchen table went next. The one where Mason and I used to eat breakfast on Saturday mornings, him reading news on his phone while I planned out my week. Then the bookshelf we'd assembled together one Sunday afternoon, arguing over the instructions, laughing when we realized we'd put 2 panels on backward. The bed frame. The nightstands. The coffee table. Every piece of furniture held memories I didn't want anymore. I kept only what would fit in my car and what the Boston apartment could accommodate. I'd found the place through a remote video tour. A 1-bedroom in South End, tiny compared to what I had here, but it was mine. Completely, entirely mine. No shared lease. No Mason's name on anything. Just Sophia Crawford starting fresh. Everything else got sold or donated. The dresser went to a young couple furnishing their first apartment. The dining chairs to someone's grandmother. The area rug, the one with the permanent stain, went straight to the dumpster. One evening while sorting through the closet I found Mason's things. His winter coat still hanging where he'd left it. 3 dress shirts he wore to client meetings. A drawer full of socks and undershirts. I grabbed a garbage bag and stuffed everything inside. Didn't fold anything. Didn't care if it wrinkled. I hauled the bag down to the building lobby and left it by the mailboxes, then sent him a single text. Your stuff is downstairs. Don't contact me again. He didn't respond. The wedding binder was harder than I expected. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because of what it represented. Months of planning. Hours of research. Every detail carefully chosen and color-coded. I'd put so much of myself into those pages. I picked it up, felt the weight of it, and walked straight to the dumpster behind the building. Dropped it in without opening it. Let the whole thing disappear into the trash. But the dress. The dress nearly broke me. It hung in the closet, still in its garment bag from the last fitting. I stood in front of it for 20 minutes, my hand on the zipper, remembering the appointment where I'd found it. How I'd cried happy tears in the fitting room. How the seamstress had said she'd never seen a bride so sure of her choice. I'd been so sure. So stupidly, blindly sure. Finally, I zipped it up, carried it to my car, and drove to a consignment shop that specialized in wedding dresses. The woman at the counter took it with a kind smile, not asking questions I didn't want to answer. Someone will love this, she said. I hope so, I replied. I hope they get the wedding I didn't. The digital erasure was almost meditative. I sat on the floor of my mostly empty living room one evening with my phone, systematically removing my family from my life. One by one I blocked them. Margaret, Daniel, Nathan, Keith, Nathan. Each block felt like closing a door. By the time I finished, the silence was almost physical. This absence of possibility that they could reach me, that their names could appear on my screen, that I'd have to see their attempts at justification or apology or manipulation. Then I moved to social media. Unfriended all of them on Facebook. Unfollowed on Instagram. Removed from Snapchat. Changed my privacy settings to maximum, making my accounts completely unsearchable. But even that wasn't enough. I deactivated Facebook entirely. Deleted Instagram from my phone. Set my LinkedIn to show minimal information. Just my name, current position, and city. No connection to Milwaukee. No mention of my previous life. I created a new email address. sophia.crawford.marketing@gmail.com. Spent 3 hours updating accounts and contacts, migrating everything that mattered. The old email, sophiabellamy26@gmail, I set to auto-delete anything from family domains. They could send messages into the void if they wanted. I'd never see them. Even my Spotify had to change. I couldn't stand seeing the shared playlists Mason and I had made together. Sunday morning vibes. Road trip songs. Cooking dinner together. Each title was a small knife in my chest. I deleted them all and started fresh. One night I went through my photo albums. Both the digital ones on my phone and the physical albums I'd kept since college. I removed every picture with Lisa. Every picture with Mason. Every picture with my parents. It was surgical. Brutal. I kept only photos of myself alone or with friends. Julia and Amir from college, Denise from work, acquaintances from various stages of my life who'd never met the Bellamys. The removed photos went into a cardboard box that I shoved into the back of my closet. I couldn't bring myself to destroy them completely, not yet, but I couldn't bring them to Boston either. They stayed behind, sealed away like evidence from a crime I wanted to forget. I met Julia, Amir, and Denise at a coffee shop in the 3rd Ward on my second-to-last day in Milwaukee. They were the only people I wanted to say goodbye to in person. I told them a carefully edited version of the truth. The engagement had ended. Family stuff got complicated. I was taking the Boston transfer as a fresh start. I didn't mention walking in on Mason and Lisa. I didn't mention the family dinner or the pregnancy announcement or my mother telling me to stop crying. Julia studied my face, her expression concerned. What really happened, Sophia? I shook my head. It's one of those situations where explaining it makes me relive it. And I need to move forward, not backward. Just know that I didn't make this decision lightly. They promised to visit. To stay in touch. To be there if I needed them. I believed their sincerity, but I also knew distance changes things. I was counting on it. I needed space from everything that reminded me of who I'd been when I was still Sophia Bellamy, still the girl who tried so hard to please people who would never be pleased. At work, I told a simpler story. Excited about the promotion. Ready for a new city. New challenges. Most people seemed to buy it. A few gave me knowing looks like they suspected there was more beneath the surface, but no one pushed. On my last day, the team threw a small goodbye party. Grocery store cake with "Good luck, Sophia" written in blue icing. Cards wishing me well. Hugs from coworkers who'd become friends. I smiled and thanked them and meant it. These people had been kind to me in ways my family never was. But I also felt like I was watching the scene from outside my body, already halfway gone, already becoming someone else. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. April in Milwaukee still felt like winter. I loaded my car with everything I was keeping. Clothes packed into 3 suitcases. Books in 2 boxes. My laptop and work files. Kitchen essentials I'd need until I could buy more in Boston. And one framed photo of my grandmother Eleanor, her slight smile captured in black and white from the 1970s. The back seat and trunk were packed tight, but it all fit. Everything I was bringing into my new life fit into a single car. I took one last look at the apartment. Completely empty now except for the carpet stains I'd never quite gotten out. The walls had lighter squares where pictures used to hang. The rooms echoed when I walked through them. This place had held so much hope once. So many plans for the future. Now it was just empty space. I locked the door behind me, dropped the keys in the landlord's mailbox, and got in my car. The drive to Boston would take roughly 16 hours with stops. I'd broken it into 2 days, planning to stop somewhere in Pennsylvania for the night. As I merged onto the highway heading east, Milwaukee disappeared in my rearview mirror. I didn't look back. The motel in Pennsylvania was exactly what you'd expect. Generic room. Thin walls. The sound of trucks on the interstate rattling the windows every few minutes. I lay awake most of the night, staring at the popcorn ceiling, thinking about how completely my life had changed in 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago I was planning a wedding. I had a fiancé. I had a family. I had a name I'd carried my entire life. Now I had none of those things. Instead, I had a car full of belongings, a job in a city I'd never lived in, and a name that connected me to a grandmother who'd chosen herself when everyone else demanded she shrink. Should have felt terrifying. And it did. But underneath the fear was something else. Freedom. Boston hit me like a wave when I arrived Sunday afternoon. Narrow streets that made no logical sense. Aggressive drivers who honked if you hesitated for even a second. Accents I'd only heard in movies. The sheer compression of everything. Buildings closer together, people moving faster, life happening at a volume Milwaukee never reached. My apartment was tiny. The bedroom barely fit a bed. The kitchen was a galley with approximately 3 feet of counter space. But the windows let in good light, and it was in a neighborhood where I could walk to coffee shops and grocery stores. And it was mine. Completely, entirely mine. I spent the first night on an air mattress I'd ordered for delivery, eating takeout pizza straight from the box. Sitting on the floor because I didn't have furniture yet. The city sounds were different. Sirens closer. Voices louder through thin walls. Music from the apartment above me. Life compressed into every available space. I was anonymous here. Unknown. Free to become whoever Sophia Crawford would be. It was terrifying. It was exactly what I needed. That night, I fell asleep to the unfamiliar sounds of my new neighborhood. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't dream about Milwaukee at all. Monday morning, I walked into the Boston office for my first official day as Senior Marketing Manager for the East Coast Division. The office was 3 times the size of Milwaukee. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Open-plan workspace buzzing with energy. Conference rooms named after Boston landmarks. Everything moved faster here. People walked faster, talked faster, expected results faster. I loved it immediately. My boss Patricia was a woman in her late 50s with sharp gray hair and sharper instincts. She didn't waste time on small talk. "You've got the Henderson account," she said during our first meeting, sliding a folder across her desk. "Tech startup, terrible brand recognition, burning money on campaigns that aren't landing. Fix it." I spent 2 weeks analyzing everything, their messaging, their target demographics, their competitors. Then I pitched a complete overhaul. New visual identity. Different platform focus. Content strategy built around actual user pain points instead of generic tech bro aspirations. Patricia listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "When can you start implementation?" Within a month, Henderson's engagement had increased by 40%. Patricia praised my work in a team meeting, and suddenly I wasn't the new person anymore. I was the person who delivered results. I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised me. I arrived before most people and stayed until the office emptied. I volunteered for projects other team members avoided. The difficult clients, the tight deadlines, the campaigns that required complete rebuilds. Work became my anchor. The one place where my value was measurable and my contributions mattered. Outside work, I started building a life that belonged only to me. I joined co-workers for happy hour on Thursdays at a bar in the financial district. Weekend brunches in the North End became routine. Cappuccinos and ricotta pancakes while discussing everything except our personal lives in depth. I learned to navigate the subway system that made no logical sense but somehow got you everywhere you needed to go. I found a coffee shop on Columbus Avenue where the barista started making my order. Oat milk lot extra shot. The moment she saw me walk in. I discovered a yoga studio 3 blocks from my apartment and went every Sunday morning, learning to quiet my mind for an hour at a time. I even started dating casually. Nothing serious. Just reminders that I was capable of connection without the weight of commitment. Eric from a dating app. Finance guy, nice smile, boring conversation. We went out 3 times before mutually agreeing we had nothing in common. Jen from a work mixer. Marketing director at a pharmaceutical company. We grabbed drinks twice and the second time we kissed in the back of an Uber. It was fine. Pleasant. But neither of us pushed for more. I wasn't ready for more. Maybe I'd never be ready again. And that felt okay. The months blurred together in a way that felt productive rather than empty. Spring turned to summer. Summer turned to early fall. I was building something, though I wasn't entirely sure what yet. By the time August arrived, humid and sticky, the city smelling like hot garbage and ambition, I realized I'd gone 6 months without speaking to anyone from my old life. I thought about them less frequently now. Whole days would pass without Milwaukee crossing my mind. But late at night sometimes, lying in my small bedroom listening to the city sounds, I'd wonder if they missed me at all. Or if my absence barely registered in their lives, just an inconvenience that had resolved itself. I was walking home from the gym in mid-August when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, assuming it was spam. But something made me open it. "Sophia, it's Nathan. I got your new number from your old landlord. Please don't block me yet." My thumb hovered over the block button. But curiosity won. A second text arrived. "Mom's really upset. Lisa had the baby, a girl. They named her Sophie. Mom says it's an olive branch. She wants you to come meet your niece." I stopped walking. Just froze on the sidewalk while people streamed around me, irritated that I was blocking foot traffic. They named the baby after me. The manipulation was so transparent, so perfectly Margaret, that I almost laughed out loud. They actually thought naming Lisa and Mason's baby after me would guilt me into coming back. That I'd be so moved by the gesture that I'd forget the family dinner where they demanded I celebrate my own betrayal. That I'd forget my mother telling me to stop crying because my tears made everyone uncomfortable. A third text: "I know things got really bad. But maybe this is a chance to start over? The baby is innocent in all this." I stared at my phone for a long time. Part of me, the part that had been raised to value family above everything, wanted to believe this might be genuine. That maybe they'd had 6 months to reflect. That maybe they understood now. But I knew better. This wasn't an olive branch. It was bait. They didn't understand that I'd left because of how they'd treated me, not because I was throwing some extended tantrum. They thought this was about grudges and hurt feelings, not about self-preservation and boundaries. They still didn't get it. Maybe they never would. I didn't respond. I blocked Nathan's new number and continued walking home. Despite my best efforts, small pieces of information about the Bellamys filtered through over the following months. In September, an old high school acquaintance I'd forgotten to unfriend posted photos from Lisa's baby shower. Pink balloons. A cake with baby Sophie written in frosting. Lisa surrounded by friends, her hand on her swollen belly, smiling like she hadn't destroyed someone's life to get there. I didn't look closely. Just quickly unfriended the person and moved on. In October, Denise from my old job forwarded me a LinkedIn update. "Margaret Bellamy is now retired and loving grandmother life." The profile picture showed my mother holding a baby in a white dress. I deleted the email without responding. In November, Julia texted, "Ran into your mom at the grocery store. She seemed really upset about you not being around for the holidays. Do you want to talk about it?" I texted back immediately, "I appreciate you caring, but I need you to not pass messages from my family. That door is closed." Julia responded with understanding, "Got it. Sorry. Won't happen again." Then December arrived, and with it an envelope at my Boston apartment. I still don't know how they got my address. I suspect Nathan somehow, maybe through my old landlord or by convincing someone at my company to give it to him. Inside was a Christmas card. Professional photo. Lisa, Mason, and baby Sophie. The baby was maybe 4 months old, wearing a red velvet dress. Lisa and Mason were smiling, looking every inch the happy family. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "Family is forever. We're waiting for you to come home." I stared at it for a long moment. At Lisa's smile. At Mason's arm around her shoulders. At the baby who shared my name but would grow up never knowing me. Then I tore the card in half and threw it in the trash. Family is not forever when family asks you to betray yourself. When they demand you celebrate your own humiliation. When they choose comfort over justice, appearance over truth. I was done letting them define what family meant. In early January, I attended a marketing conference in New York City. 3 days focused on digital strategy and brand development. I was presenting a case study on the Henderson campaign, the one that had made my reputation in Boston. I was nervous but prepared. I'd practiced the presentation a dozen times. The panel went well. People asked smart questions. I gave smart answers. When it ended, I felt the relief of having survived something intimidating. During the networking break, a man approached me. "That was a brilliant presentation," he said, extending his hand. "Carter Mitchell. I'm with Hastings and Cole in Chicago." He was tall, maybe 6'2", with warm brown eyes and dark hair just starting to gray at the temples. His smile felt genuine rather than performative, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "Sophia Crawford," I replied, shaking his hand. "Thanks. I'm glad it landed." We ended up talking for 40 minutes. About campaigns and industry trends and the impossible challenge of proving ROI on brand awareness initiatives. It was the first conversation I'd had in months where I felt intellectually challenged and genuinely respected. "Do you want to grab dinner?" Carter asked as the networking session was ending. "There's a great Italian place near the hotel." I surprised myself by saying yes. The restaurant was tiny, tucked into a side street, the kind of place tourists never find. We ordered pasta and wine and kept talking, about work at first, then about everything else. Carter talked about growing up in Minneapolis, about his close relationship with his younger sister who was now a teacher in St. Paul, about his love of hiking despite living in a city where the closest nature was an hour away. When he asked about my family, I hesitated. "We're not in touch anymore," I said finally. "It's complicated." Carter didn't push. Didn't ask follow-up questions or give me that pitying look people sometimes do when you mention family estrangement. He just nodded and said, "Family stuff usually is." The ease of his response, no judgment, no demands for explanation, made something inside me relax. For the first time since leaving Milwaukee, I felt like I could breathe around someone without constantly monitoring what I revealed. We talked until the restaurant started putting chairs on tables, a subtle hint they wanted to close. Outside, Carter pulled out his phone. "Can I get your number? I'd like to do this again sometime. Next time you're in Chicago or I'm in Boston." I gave him my number. He texted immediately, "This is Carter. So you have mine too." The next morning another text arrived. "Had a great time last night. Let me know when you're free." I stared at the message for a long time, feeling something I hadn't felt in almost a year. Cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, I could trust someone again. Carter and I fell into a pattern after that first dinner in New York. We'd text throughout the day, nothing heavy, just small moments. A photo of his terrible office coffee. A meme about marketing jargon. Updates on projects we were working on. Every other weekend one of us would make the trip. Boston to Chicago or Chicago to Boston. We'd explore neighborhoods, try new restaurants, spend lazy Sunday mornings reading the paper and drinking coffee. The relationship built slowly, carefully. Both of us conscious of wounds we'd carried into it. He told me about his ex-wife, married at 25, divorced at 32. She'd wanted kids immediately. He'd wanted to wait. The disagreement had eroded everything else until there was nothing left but resentment. I told him the basics of my story. That my sister had slept with my fiancé. That my family had taken their side. That I'd walked away from all of it and changed my name. He never pushed for more details than I was ready to give. Never asked questions that felt like excavations of my pain. That he showed up. Consistently. Called when he said he would. Respected my boundaries. Made it clear through actions rather than words that he was trustworthy. 6 months after we started dating, Carter accepted a position transfer to Boston. "I want to be clear," he said when he told me. "I'm not moving for you. I'm moving because I want to be in the same city as you. There's a difference. No pressure. No expectations. Just proximity." The distinction mattered to me more than he probably knew. 3 months ago we took a weekend trip to Cape Cod. Late September, the beaches mostly empty, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. We walked along the shore at sunset and Carter stopped suddenly, turning to face me. "I love you, Sophia. I love the life we're building. And I promise you'll never have to choose between being yourself and being with me." Then he pulled a small box from his jacket pocket. The ring was simple. A thin gold band with a small emerald. My birthstone, not a diamond. Thoughtful. Understated. Nothing like the ring Mason had given me. "Will you marry me?" I said yes because I finally believed someone could mean those words. Could promise not to make me choose between myself and them and actually keep that promise. Now, 18 months after leaving Milwaukee, I stand in my Boston apartment, which feels like home in ways Milwaukee never did. wearing that ring and feeling something I didn't think I'd feel again. Peace. Our wedding planning is different this time. Smaller. More intimate. We're getting married in October on the coast of Maine. Just close friends, maybe 20 people total. No family drama. No performances. Just two people choosing each other. Carter's parents and sister are coming. Julia and Amir are making the trip. A few close friends from work. That's it. The simplicity feels right. I'm drinking coffee on a Tuesday morning in late September, reviewing a campaign proposal on my laptop, when an email notification appears. The sender's address makes my stomach drop. Daniel Bellamy 47 at Gmail. My father. I haven't heard from him since I walked out of my parents' house 18 months ago. Since I changed my name and erased the Bellamys from my life. My hand hovers over the delete button. But something, curiosity maybe or some remnant of the daughter I used to be, makes me open it. Subject line, please read this. The email is longer than anything my father has ever written to me. Sophia, I know I have no right to contact you after how I failed you. Your mother and I are divorced. It became final last month. I'm living in a small apartment in Wauwatosa, and I've started going to therapy to understand how I enabled so much dysfunction. I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or to convince you to come back. I just need you to know that I finally see how wrong we were. How wrong I was. You deserved parents who protected you, and instead we sacrificed you to keep the peace. Lisa and Mason split up 6 months ago. He cheated on her, with a woman from his office. Lisa moved back in with your mother, and according to Nathan, they're both miserable. Your mother blames you for destroying the family by leaving, but I finally told her the truth. You didn't destroy anything. We did. I don't expect you to respond to this. I just needed you to know that you were right. About all of it. You deserved better than we gave you. I read the email 3 times, my coffee growing cold in my hands. My parents are divorced. Lisa and Mason split up. Mason cheated on her exactly like I'd predicted he would. The vindication should feel satisfying. Dad, I just feel tired. And a little sad for the people they all could have been if they'd made different choices. For 3 days I don't respond. I talk about it with Carter that evening. We're making dinner together in my tiny kitchen, him chopping vegetables while I stir pasta. My father emailed me. I say, keeping my tone neutral. Carter looks up. What did he say? I give him the summary. The divorce. Lisa and Mason splitting up. My father going to therapy and finally taking accountability. How do you feel about it? Carter asks. I don't know. Conflicted. He's saying what I needed to hear 18 months ago. But it's too late now, you know? I've moved on. Carter sets down the knife and comes over to me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. Whatever you decide, I support you. But make sure you're deciding based on what you need, not what you think you're supposed to do. I lean back into him, grateful for the steadiness he brings to my life. The next day I bring it up with Dr. Reeves, my therapist. I'd started seeing her 6 months after moving to Boston, finally ready to unpack the layers of family dysfunction I'd spent years ignoring. What would responding give you, she asks. And what would not responding cost you? I think about it for a long time. Responding wouldn't give me my family back, I say finally. That's gone. But maybe it would give me closure. Or at least acknowledgement that I wasn't crazy. That what they did was wrong. And not responding? Not responding feels like holding on to something I don't need to hold on to anymore. Like I'm still angry enough to maintain the silence when really I'm just done. Dr. Reeves nods. So the question is, which choice moves you forward? That evening I open my laptop and type a response. Short, clear, boundaried. Dad, I appreciate you taking accountability. That's more than I expected. I'm not ready for a relationship right now, and I may never be. But I want you to know that I've built a good life here. I'm engaged to someone who treats me with respect. I have work I'm proud of and friends who show up for me. I hope you find peace with your choices. Take care of yourself. I hit send before I can second guess it. My father responds within an hour. That's all I could ask for. I'm glad you're happy. You deserved happiness all along. I close the email and don't reopen the thread. Maybe someday I'll be ready for more. Maybe not. Either way, it's my choice to make. A few days later, Julia texts me. We've stayed in touch over the past 18 months, though I'd been clear about not wanting to hear about my family. She's respected that boundary completely until now. I know you don't want to hear about Milwaukee, her text reads. But I thought you should know what actually happened with Lisa and Mason. Not from your family's version. From people who were there. I almost tell her I don't care. But curiosity wins. Okay, I text back. She calls instead of texting and I sit on my couch listening to the fuller story. Mason's cheating started about 4 months after Sophie was born. A junior architect at his firm, 24 years old, ambitious, reminded him of Lisa before responsibility and a baby wore her down. Lisa found messages on his phone. Confronted him in the parking lot of his office. Multiple people witnessed the fight. Lisa screaming, Mason trying to calm her down, both of them making a scene that became office gossip for weeks. Lisa moved back to my mother's house with Sophie. Mason initially fought for custody, but eventually agreed to every other weekend because fighting was expensive and he'd already moved on with the junior architect. Your mom is apparently miserable, Julia adds. She complains constantly about being stuck taking care of Sophie when she thought she'd be retired and traveling. And she still blames you for everything. Says you destroyed the family by being unforgiving. I almost laugh at that. Almost. And Lisa? Working part-time at some boutique. Living in your old childhood bedroom with a toddler. From what I hear, she and your mom fight constantly. The narrative they'd constructed, the grand love story that justified destroying my engagement, has revealed itself as exactly what I knew it was all along. Selfish people making selfish choices, then facing the consequences. I should feel satisfaction, vindication, some sense of cosmic justice. Instead, I just feel a distant sort of pity. And underneath that, profound gratitude that I walked away before getting trapped in their dysfunction permanently. Thanks for telling me, I say to Julia. I mean it. But I don't need updates after this, okay? That part of my life is closed. I understand, Julia says. For what it's worth, I'm really proud of you. For leaving. For building something better. After we hang up, I sit on my couch for a long time looking at the engagement ring on my finger. Thinking about the girl I was 18 months ago. The one who thought her worth was tied to pleasing people who would never be pleased. I'm not her anymore. I'm Sophia Crawford. I have a career I'm proud of. Friends who show up for me. A partner who respects me. A wedding planned on my terms with people who actually care about my happiness. The Bellamy's made their choices. I made mine. And I've never been more certain I made the right one. October arrived on the coast of Maine like a gift. I woke up in a small inn overlooking the Atlantic, sunlight streaming through gauzy white curtains. The room smelled like salt air and pine. Outside, I could hear waves crashing against rocks, gulls calling to each other, the distant sound of a boat engine. Today was my wedding day. My real wedding day. Not the performance I'd been planning in Milwaukee 2 years ago. Not the event designed to please everyone except the person actually getting married. This was mine. I got out of bed and walked to the window. The ocean stretched endless and gray-blue under a sky so clear it almost hurt to look at. The October air was cold but the sun was brilliant. 20 people were coming. That was it. Carter's parents and his sister Morgan. Patricia from work. Julia and Denise who'd driven up from the Midwest together. Amir who'd flown in from Chicago. A handful of Carter's close friends from graduate school and his hiking group. No one who would make today about anything except 2 people choosing each other. My dress hung on the closet door. Cream-colored, tea-length, simple lines. I'd found it at a boutique in Cambridge and the moment I tried it on, I knew. It was nothing like the elaborate gown I'd donated 18 months ago. The one with lace sleeves and a train that required 3 people to bustle. This dress was just for me. I did my own makeup while FaceTiming with Morgan, Carter's sister. We'd grown close over the past year. She was funny and sharp and had zero tolerance for pretense. Stop fidgeting with your eyeliner, she said, laughing. It looks perfect. You're just nervous. I'm not nervous about marrying him, I said. I'm nervous about crying through the vows and looking like a mess in photos. Then cry. Who cares? It's your wedding. She told terrible jokes to distract me. Something about a penguin and a bartender that made no sense but made me laugh anyway. And she was right. I felt more at peace than I had in years. As I put on my grandmother Eleanor's pearl earrings, the only family heirloom I'd kept, I thought about the journey from that devastating February evening to this moment. I thought about the girl who'd walked into her apartment carrying Thai food, expecting a quiet evening, and instead discovered her entire life was a lie. That version of myself had shattered into pieces so small I didn't think they could ever be put back together. But I'd been wrong. I hadn't put those pieces back together. I'd built something new from them. Something stronger. More authentic. Less willing to compromise itself for other people's comfort. Sophia Crawford was born from the ruins of Sophia Bellamy. And I liked her better. The ceremony was at 3 in the afternoon on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The wind was cold, biting through my dress, but the sky was impossibly blue and the sun was warm on my face. Chairs were arranged in a small semicircle. The officiant, a kind woman in her 60s named Ellen who'd talked with us about what we wanted the ceremony to represent, stood at the front holding a small book of poems. Carter was already there, standing with his hands clasped, looking nervous and happy and more handsome than I'd ever seen him. There was no one to walk me down the aisle. No one to give me away, like I was property being transferred. I walked alone. By choice. Proudly. Because I was giving myself to this. I'd chosen this. I'd built this. Carter's face when he saw me was everything. Pure joy. No performance. No careful arrangement of features to look appropriately moved. Just genuine, overwhelming emotion. We'd written our own vows. I'd agonized over mine for weeks, wanting them to be true. Not pretty or poetic. Just true. When Ellen nodded at me, I took a breath and spoke. Carter, you showed me that love doesn't require me to shrink or compromise or accept treatment I don't deserve. You showed me that partnership means both people choosing each other every day, not one person accommodating another's needs until they disappear. I promise to keep choosing you, keep showing up as myself, and keep building a life where we both get to be whole people. My voice cracked on the last sentence, but I kept going. Carter's vows talked about respecting my boundaries, honoring my journey, creating a family, whether that eventually included children or just the two of us, built on honesty rather than obligation. When Ellen pronounced us married, the small group erupted in applause. Real applause. The kind people give when they're genuinely happy for you, not just going through social motions. Carter kissed me and I felt no shadow of my past. No ghost of what had been stolen from me. This moment belonged entirely to my present and future. The reception was held in the inn's small dining room. 20 of us around tables pushed together, eating locally caught fish and roasted vegetables, drinking wine, laughing. There was no DJ. Just a playlist Carter and I had made together. Songs we both loved, songs that meant something to us. When it came time for toasts, Patricia stood first. I've known Sophia for almost 2 years now, she said. And I've watched her transform from someone clearly running from pain into someone building toward purpose. She's become the kind of leader who lifts others up because she knows what it's like to be pushed down. This company is better because she's in it. And more importantly, she's better because she chose herself. Julia went next, talking about college. About always knowing I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. About being proud to watch me finally claim that strength. Morgan talked about how her brother was the happiest she'd ever seen him. How grateful she was that I'd let myself trust again after everything I'd been through. Then Carter stood and looked at me with so much love it made my chest ache. Sophia taught me that resilience isn't about pretending you're not hurt. It's about deciding that the hurt doesn't get to define you. I'm the luckiest person in the world that she chose me. When it was my turn to speak, I stood on shaking legs. 2 years ago, I thought my life was ending, I said. I thought losing my family and my fiancé meant losing everything. But it turned out I was losing dead weight so I could finally become myself. I looked around the table at these people, Julia and Amir and Denise who'd known me when I was still trying to figure out who I was. Patricia who'd given me a chance when I needed one most. Carter's family who'd welcomed me without hesitation. Carter himself who'd shown me what love actually looked like. Thank you all for being the family I chose. For showing up when it mattered. For proving that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. The morning after the wedding, Carter and I sat on the inn's porch drinking coffee and watching waves crash against the rocks below. We were leaving in a few hours for our honeymoon. 2 weeks in Portugal, Lisbon and Porto, eating seafood and drinking wine, being anonymous tourists in a beautiful place. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For just a second my stomach clenched. Some old reflex thinking it might be my family. Someone from Milwaukee tracking down my new number. Another attempt to pull me back into their drama. But when I opened it, it was just a wrong number. Someone looking for a Linda. I deleted it and put the phone down. Carter noticed. You okay? I nodded. Yeah. For a second I thought it was my family. But it wasn't. And even if it had been, I know I'm okay now. I looked out at the ocean, watching the morning light turn the water silver. I spent 26 years letting them define my worth, I said. And then I spent 2 years rebuilding it on my own terms. They don't get to affect me anymore. Carter took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. I'm proud of you. Not just for walking away, but for building something real after. I leaned against his shoulder, breathing in the salt air, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. I thought about the Bellamys in Milwaukee. Margaret probably still complaining about being stuck with childcare, still blaming me for destroying the family. Lisa struggling with single motherhood and a baby who'd been used as a bargaining chip. Daniel in his small apartment, learning lessons decades too late. Nathan maintaining his careful neutrality with no one left to mediate. I didn't wish them harm. I just wished them far away from my life. And they were. I'd made sure of it. The most powerful revenge I'd learned wasn't destroying the people who hurt you. It was building a life so fulfilling that their absence became a blessing instead of a loss. They'd wanted me to shrink. To apologize. To accept humiliation as the price of family unity. Instead, I'd walked away and became someone they never deserved to know. That day in my parents' dining room when I chose myself over their comfort, when I said no to their demands and walked out, that was the day I stopped being a victim and became the architect of my own life. Their stunned disbelief didn't matter. Their inability to comprehend that I would simply refuse to play my assigned role was never my problem to solve. I'd spent 26 years trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it freely. The moment I stopped trying was the moment I finally became free. Sophia Crawford, formerly Bellamy, sat on that porch watching the ocean and felt nothing but peace. I'd survived their betrayal. I'd survived their abandonment. I'd survived becoming someone new. And in surviving, I discovered something they would never understand. Sometimes the greatest act of love is loving yourself enough to walk away from people who don't value you. The future stretched ahead. Full of possibility and choice and freedom. I'd built it myself from the ruins they'd created. And it was beautiful. Carter squeezed my hand. Ready to start our honeymoon? I smiled, kissed him and stood up. I'm ready for everything. And I meant it. If this story of choosing yourself over toxic family had you hooked, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Sophia said no at that family dinner and finally walked away. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more powerful stories like this. Subscribe and hit that